Great actresses have the innate ability to create a performance that resonates with the audience long after we leave the theater. Join us as we sit down with some of the women who have triumphed on the screen this year. On this episode, we have Amy Adams, Big Eyes, Patricia Arquette, Boyhood, Laura Dern, Wild, Felicity Jones, The Theory of Everything, Julianne Moore, Still Alice, Hilary Swank, The Homesman, and Reese Witherspoon, Wild. Welcome to the Hollywood Reporter Roundtable's The Actresses. Welcome to the Hollywood Reporter Roundtable's The Actresses. I'm Matt Bellany of the Hollywood Reporter, and today we've got Hilary Swank, Amy Adams, Julianne Moore, Reese Witherspoon, Felicity Jones, Patricia Arquette, and Laura Dern. I'd like to start with a question for the group. What has been your bravest or most challenging moment as an actress?
But I would say for me, it would probably have been Boys Don't Cry, playing Brandon Tina or Tina Brandon, however you want to say it, just for the sake of passing as a boy and trying to be believable as a boy to tell this person's story with the most integrity. And I felt a huge responsibility because it was a tragic event that happened, and I wanted to be able to tell it as honestly as possible. So
I agree. I think, well, I played Cheryl Strayed in Wild, and it was a true story. And she was standing there the whole time, which was hard. So I felt embarrassed for the first 3 days because I sang her, doing her voice right, and is she gonna judge me? But she was amazing and really lovely. But I think that one of the hardest days on that shoot was I had to do sex scene with two guys that I've never had to do a sex scene any kind of
Do it once?
Yeah.
We're all fascinated. We're like,
Same
whoa,
time?
this sounds
Yeah, and I was so nervous. And I called her, and I was like, I can't. I called Cheryl that night, but I was like, I can't believe I have to do that. And she's like, sorry, I was such a slut in the '90s, Reese. You know? and then I said, Laura was on the set because she has to be. She's sort of not. She's an apparition, sort of watching me. She had to literally watch me, and she told me a great story that actually helped me get through that. But I don't know if you want to tell that story.
Yes, and thank God
Which is an amazing story.
Me so that I can have an answer. But I worked on this film, Citizen Ruth, and it was the first day of the shoot, and Alexander Payne, it was his first feature.
Great film.
And so he came up and said, okay, we're going to start with the opening, which is this love scene, and I want you to meet, the guy you're going to be doing the scene with. And I was like, great, what actor is playing that part? And he goes, his name's Lance. We just picked him up at the bar down the street. And he came in and he was like, I am so excited to be here. I just went down to the 7-Eleven and I got some Arid Extra Dry and some breath mints. Let's go. I was like, oh my God, day one of Citizen Ruth. So that was
great.
Very, very exciting.
Wow.
Keeping it real.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. How about the others?
oh my God.
Well, I played a real person in this film, Theory of Everything, and like you guys, it's that thing of knowing they're going to be watching it at some point, and you just think, what if they just hate everything you've done, And so it's just trying to, as you must have found, just doing it with truthfulness and hopefully, fingers crossed, they like what you do. But
It's an added responsibility, isn't it? It's hard. The challenge of just acting in general and telling the story as honestly as possible. But then when you have someone and they're still alive, it's an added challenge for sure.
And
How much
especially
do
when
you
you
interact
like
with
them
them?
as well.
Yeah.
When you respect them, you want
On
to
your
do them
film,
justice.
Amy, she's still alive, Margaret Keane, and there's a nice photo of you guys together at the end of the film.
Stories.
And did you consult with her? Did you ask
did.
how did you act in this situation?
She's very private, very quiet person, and so I wasn't sure if she'd be open to me coming up and sort of picking her brain about her private life. And so just to spend the time with her and to sort of get her blessing was huge. And to sort of warm into this idea of becoming her. And there's not a lot of footage on her, and there's just not a lot. I had to really use her as my resource, but she's just such a gentle woman, and it was really, I think once you get the blessing is the thing, like they're open and
Gives you the freedom.
Yeah, it gives you the freedom to, just as long as you understand their truth, like you said, and
has she
to
seen it?
tell the truth. I think she has. Yeah, I think so. I haven't heard from her, but like I said, she's not the kind of person that'll, you know, she's so overwhelmed that somebody would want to tell her story. So
Interesting.
yeah, she's sweet.
You were taking credit for something that isn't yours.
I was just trying to close a deal.
These children are a part of my being.
I'm a salesman. You know buyers pay more if they meet the painter.
They couldn't meet me because you told me to stay home.
Look, we're making money. Your pocket, my pocket. Where's the difference?
You were taking this so lightly.
Not at all. This is not about ego. You want to say you did the street scenes? Fine, I don't care. Say a monkey painted them.
Well, I'm glad that you can just dash away your work without any emotional connection, but...
Honey, I just want to share them with the world. Would you rather have your children piled in a closet or hanging in someone's living room?
I was joking that the most brave thing I've ever done on film was natural childbirth, but, you know, my own actual natural childbirth, but you can't have any of that footage.
I imagine on Boyhood, which was 12 years in the making, there's probably a ton of stuff that didn't make it in the film.
No, because there's one beautiful scene that I really hope it someday makes it somewhere. Other than that, it's a scene where I'm sitting with Eller and we're talking about his grandfather dying and our connection to people who've died and people in our family and how that really lasts with us. But other than that little scene, nothing else was cut out. I mean, little line here or there, but we had such a small budget, we only had $200,000 a year. So we were already really lean on what we were shooting.
It was extraordinary. It was great. And that scene where, I've seen with the scene where you're sitting and having dinner with your kids and the kids are so little and you're telling them that you're gonna move. And I was so struck by your authenticity and how easy the scene was and how real. And because they were little kids, so they weren't really acting, they were just behaving. And you were, basically, you had commandeered the entire scene. And it was so, so good. It was just remarkable. And also kind of shot like in a loose, you know, in a loose master. I was like, whoa!
I wonder what the emotional experience of watching that at the premiere was. You saw it for the first time at Sundance, correct?
Yeah.
And what were you thinking as you watched it and afterward?
Well, kind of to all of this, when I first went there, the first weekend I went there, I met everybody. And then Rick said, so this lady's playing your mom. And then I had them for the weekend. Rick left his house.
Richard
they slept
Linklater,
over.
the director.
Yeah, and the kids slept over. And so I drew their baths and we made them dinner and we did art projects. And at first they really were just kids. And he intentionally chose a boy who had done some acting, who had an agent, who had chosen that as a path he was interested in, but also who wasn't trying to please other adults. He was like an artistic, sensitive kid. So it just kind of fell into place. And during the filming, it would be like, I'm hungry. Okay, I'll make you a sandwich at craft service. Come with me over to craft service. Or I'd have a scene where I'd be crying because they're learning about acting while they're growing up. So I would be getting myself ready for this scene. And then they'd come over like, how do you do that? How do you make yourself cry? Okay, sit next to me. Here's what I'm doing. You still wouldn't have time to slow down and you couldn't as a human being say, honey, I got to do this right now. So you had to do both at once. You kind of had to mother and teach acting and move through things. So when I watched it, it was like, wow. Because we didn't have a full script at the beginning and you had to have a different process of, usually you can arc your character according to, and understand why your character makes certain choices along the way. Here we had these 12 mini scripts, but I would only have the scenes I was in. So I got to see when I saw the movie other scenes. When Ethan was with the kids, what a beautiful dad he was. And even though my character really resented him, and understandably, when she got to see him as a beautiful dad, it was like, God, I wish we could all actually have that experience of seeing our other partner, who they are without us.
Goodbye, yard. Goodbye, crepe myrtle. Goodbye, mailbox. Goodbye, box of stuff Mommy won't let us take with us, but we don't want to throw away. Goodbye, house. I'll never like Mommy as much for making us move.
Samantha, why don't you say goodbye to that little horseshit attitude, okay? Because we're not taking that in the car.
Goodbye, old lady who listens to rock music and rides a motorcycle.
Julianne, you've made some very bold choices in your career. I'm curious what your most challenging moment has been.
Maybe going to the Golden Globe 6 weeks after my son was born. That was bad. That was really bad. Because you don't even know how big you are.
Right.
You're just like, oh, I look pretty good. I look good. I like this dress. I'm gonna put this dress on. And I put on a dress that had this low thing, and by the end of the night, I was almost choking on my horrible hairdo. It looked like birds of paradise coming out on either side of my head. It was terrible.
Do you flash that over and over in your head as like...
Every time I get ready to go somewhere, I think it could be worse.
This is not that. It will never be that again.
That leads to a good question for the group. The most embarrassing moment in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Oh God, do we really have to relive that?
I know. Auditions.
Yeah.
Auditions where you just totally just fucked it up. Bad. I remember I did this audition for a director, and I really wanted this part, and it was kind of different. And he was like, I got to the end of it, and I just thought I nailed it. And he was like, why are you playing it stoned? And I'd made this like really big character choice to talk really slow, and he just basically like reduced me to this big, and I just was like, oh, I'm never gonna take choice. It's like chances again. I tell you, it's so bad.
Because I read, if you ever saw The Unbearable Lightness of Being, you see Juliette Binoche in that. She's so vulnerable and open and raw and sweet and vulnerable. And I remember reading a review of her, and it said, why did they cast her? She's so masculine. And I just thought, they don't see that as choices in actresses. They see everything you do as your own essence and judge you as if it's you. Here's this actress clearly acting two parts. And yet, in some way, that gets lost.
Yeah, and like you said, it's in order to be vulnerable and to be open and to try new things, when someone pushes you down like that with just a couple of words, like, why did you do that? Instead of saying, well, that was an interesting choice, let's try something else, it makes you feel scared to take a risk and to try something new.
Has anybody seen Whiplash? Have y'all seen Whiplash?
No, my husband saw it.
It's amazing, but it's about being a young artist and what can happen if one person just suppresses you or says the wrong thing to you, and how you can be decimated, or you can completely take it on as a challenge. I mean, it's a beautiful film, but it reminded me of being a young actress trying to find your way or your voice or your anything.
Confidence.
And that's not just in our art, that's in life. You think of the people who raised you and your role models, and how those words of confidence made you feel better about yourself, or vice versa,
I just will share that I got my first professional job. I was 11, and Scott Baio was a very beloved actor at the time. And I saw him from across the room, and he was wearing a white leisure suit. And he just looked so stunning. And I was so excited, and I knew I was about to make the best first impression, and he would love me forever. And the director was there, and the producer, and it was a big deal. It was my first opportunity to be a professional actor. And my dog was with me, and my dog got her period on his pantsuit.
Wow, that's a good icebreaker.
telling me that was the all-time low. But he didn't forget you, I bet.
I got down on my knees with a bottle of club soda and proceeded to clean the blood out of the pants. It went over really well.
That's amazing.
I've actually never seen him again.
I'm very curious what you learned, both good and bad, from having a family in the business when you were coming up, and for both of you, actually.
Well, my dad was really a struggling actor. To raise 5 kids, he would do any job that he had to do. So my parents groaned and were miserable when I told them I wanted to be an actress. And because I did really get to see how difficult it was to survive and make a living as an actor, but it was great too because my dad would talk about acting. And my mom was a therapist, and she was interested in mythology, so she would talk about undercurrents of human beings, like passive-aggressives, narcissists, all these different kind of underpinnings of humans while he was talking about acting. So I don't think I really had much of an option.
And I mean, my parents too had a very similar response in terms of their fear about me going into a business that had no real stability to it. And I think the greatest gift for me was I was raised, like you, in a clear awareness that it's about following a path because there's no other option, because it's something you love to do and you hopefully find healing in it, not just that it's a creative path that you like, and that it comes with a massive ebb and flow in terms of a lifetime career of doing things that you don't want to do, and hopefully having time periods where there's a privilege to get to do, you know, to make choices for yourself as an artist, and the compromises one makes when they become a parent and are a creative person. So I think it's placed me in a position of not having to judge where everything's at all the time. So I feel really lucky to also have been raised.
I'm curious how that then translates to when you have kids. Like, Reese, have you thought about if your kids wanted to become actors, what your response to that would be?
Yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful business. I feel like I've seen the world. I've met amazing people. I used to have all these regrets I didn't finish college, and about a year ago, it's like, why would I regret not finishing college? I have a wonderful life, and I've been everywhere, and I've gotten to work with creative people and tell stories. That's all I ever wanted to do. So if they wanted to do it, I'd be very encouraging. I think it's hard. I would definitely tell them, you know, I would, you know, try to illuminate all the difficulties. But again, I think there's an irrepressible part of being an actor, and I don't know. I don't think my kids don't seem to gravitate towards it anyway. So.
Yeah, but it is that thing. I imagine when you have children, when they have a drive to do something, especially acting, it's like no one can stop you, really, isn't it? It's like you have to be pretty determined to make it work and get through all the rejection and the difficulties of it.
Leave me now.
Are you going to talk about this or not?
Please, let me just go.
Is that what you want?
Yes, it is what I want. So please, if you care about me at all, then please just go.
I can't.
I have 2 years to live. I need to work.
I love you.
You've left her. That's a false conclusion.
I want us to be together for as long as we've got, and if that's not very long, well, then that's just how it is. It'll have to do.
You don't know what's coming. It'll affect everything.
Who's an actress whose career you'd love to emulate?
They're pretty much all sitting around this table.
Present company excluded.
I know that seems really cheesy and like cliched, but it's I'm actually being truthful. It would be all of these women. Like,
Is there a British actress?
I hate British actors. No, I've seen everyone's work. I've literally, it is intimidating. I've grown up watching the nuance and the complexity. It's why I wanted to do it. It's phenomenal.
Question for Reese. You know, you've had success as a producer this year with Gone Girl and then with Wild. There are a lot of actors that have transitioned successfully into producers, but far fewer actresses have done that. I'm curious your thoughts on that and why that is, and how you have made that a priority.
It was probably about 3 years ago. I just started seeing this complete lack of interesting female leads in film. First I got mad, really mad. And then I was like, it's nobody's fault if you're not proactive about things. And so I'd had a company before, but it had a completely different sort of mandate. And it was basically about trying to develop things that I would eventually be in. So I just kind of switched the idea. I reframed the whole thing. And I said, if I can develop anything for any other women, I don't care who's in it. I just want my daughter to grow up seeing complex, interesting, nuanced women in film, and I was just, befuddled. So I started a company with my own money, and I thought, the first thing people tell you is don't put your own money into anything in the movie business. So I was like, is this really dumb? But I got a great partner who wasn't sure if she wanted to work with me. She auditioned me for 6 months and read stuff that I sent her, and the first 2 things I sent her were Gone Girl and Wild.
Wow.
And those are the first books that we optioned, so it just ended up being, it's been a really good process. And
Did you ever think about starring in Gone Girl?
I mean, I was always open to doing it, but as soon as David came on, it was like whenever David Fincher says he wants to do a project, you just like sit back and say whatever you want to do. But we had a long conversation where he was like, "You're not right for it, and this is why." And I actually completely agreed with him. And I can't imagine anybody better than Rosamund. And I'm so excited for her because I have known her for so many years. And it's so great to see another side that she's never been able to show, just because there was sort of a lack of material for her. And it's a great year for her, you know? So it's exciting to be part of that and just changing the conversation.
What is wrong with you?
What's wrong with you? I'm happy. Happy people sing.
Why are you happy? We have nothing, Mom. Nothing.
Well, we're rich in love.
Oh my God, please. Don't even start with that. We're both waitressing full time.
Oh, we're students.
And we're gonna have loans for the rest of our lives. This house is falling apart. You're all by yourself because you married some abusive, alcoholic asshole. And then I come home and you're singing? What part of it do you not get?
There's nothing I don't get, believe me. But then what? Cheryl, if there's one thing I could teach you, it's how to find your best self. And when you do, how to hold on to it for dear life.
And this is your best self.
I'm trying.
Reese mentioned something interesting about how she's gotten to see the world. Who's the most interesting person that you've got to meet in this job?
Everybody's interesting, you know.
No, everyone is not interesting.
No, I think everybody
but I know where you're going.
Yeah,
I think everybody is.
Yeah.
And I think what's interesting as an actor, and I'd like to say this, like, you know, I wanted to say this so badly to Laura because we did a movie years ago, and I was desperate for female company. I was absolutely desperate. I was working with a ton of children and a leading
Which
man.
film?
It was called The Prize Winner, Defiance, Ohio. And I'm supposed to be kind of this, you know, it's a bad marriage and all these little kids everywhere, and I had nobody to talk to. And then Laura came in for 3 days to this storyline as my character's friend. And she did this thing, it was so extraordinary, where we were sitting on a couch. I was so happy to see her. There are all these women around, and it was a master, and she took my hand like this and went and winked. So the camera didn't see it, and I was like, I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna cry. You know, it was like she gave me this huge, it was this huge infusion of herself, like in a scene. And I got to know her like right away. And so that's the experience you have as an actor. And unfortunately, you don't have it enough with actresses because they're never around. Because we're always
Or we don't get to movies with each other.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah. So I had that exact same thing working with Laura because I was on The Master, like sitting there, like
all by yourself,
all by myself, and some pregnancy things. And like she came on, and I feel bad. I was like glommed onto her.
I have the same thing with you too, even though we haven't worked together. We met each other in Italy, and it was the same. All roads lead back to Laura.
Yeah. But see, that experience that you can have as an actor, it's interesting the way you get to know people. You get to know them very, very quickly and very intimately, and sometimes those relationships last forever. And even if they don't, you get this kind of palpable sense of who they are. And I think that's like it's a little bit of an addiction that you develop. You're like, oh, what's this person going to be like? Because you know you're going to pick up on something, and it's fun.
What's it like? Like, what does it actually feel like?
Well, it's not always the same. You know, I have good days, bad days, and on my good days, I can, you know, almost pass for a normal person. But on my bad days, I feel like I can't find myself. I've always been so defined by my intellect, my language, my articulation, and now sometimes I can see the words hanging in front of me and I can't reach them and I don't know who I am and I don't know what I'm going to lose next.
it's like you're working with the actors in an intimate way, but I always find the people that I'm really drawn to are like, you end up with like the best sort of wardrobe mistress, and like you find out all about her life, and then like they're the most amazing, interesting people. And I think as an actress, I never want to play actors or like big personalities and all of this. So like getting to know people who choose to not be in front of the spotlight, but are yet creative at the same time, like the costume designers and hair and makeup and set designers, having conversations with them is always the most fascinating, because the energy and the work that they put into the film that you are going to be the face of, or a group of people who are the face of, it puts a different stamp on it for me.
I find also that the funniest person in the room is the prop guy or something. Like, the weird thing is, like, I think you should be an actor. I could do props for a while. Let's switch off for a minute. Like, I mean, really, you have an incredibly charismatic group of people.
Yeah.
And they bring so much energy to you and humor, and even if you're doing some really dark scene, you know, they lighten it and they work their asses off, especially when you're working on these tiny budget movies. To see people at 4 in the morning having worked 5 16-hour days with this beautiful attitude, I mean, you can't get spoiled. They're just inspiring.
And their empathy for the people you're getting to play. You know, I think there are moments where I've been fatigued with my own sort of protectiveness of a character and the character's choices. And it's often your crew that's there to hold that character so dearly. I did this show for HBO, and the character was very complicated and not always liked. And my cinematographer, Javier Grobe, who's amazing and hilarious, loved this character so much. So everything she did, the more horrible a choice she would make, he's like, oh my God, I am so Amy. That is so me, I am so Amy. And it just gave me so much love of this person I was just about to be down on.
It's also when you said, well, not everyone's interesting. I have to say, I think just as I'm getting older and thinking about life in different ways, I really believe that everyone actually is interesting, and maybe not upon first meeting, but it's like working with Tommy Lee Jones in this last movie that we did together, and I'm doing a lot of press, and every press person says, oh, I'm about to interview him, and I'm really scared, and I heard he's really hard, and I heard he's really intense.
He's famously a tough interview.
Everyone thinks of him as this like really tough, intense man, but you get him on the set, and he's animated, and he's outgoing, and he comes alive in this element that he loves. I understand why not everyone shows all of their colors in one meeting, and I think that that's something to really remember, to defy those stereotypes and to give people that opportunity to be fully realized. I mean, you can know somebody for 10 years and still not know a deep, profound part of them that they have chosen not to show. And I think that's what I'm learning as I'm growing up as a woman. And in this business, we get the opportunity, like you said, we travel the world and we meet so many different artists and we have these collaborations, and we're really forced into a room and get to know each other intimately, quickly. And it's hard to pick one person and say the most interesting.
Oh. Are you an angel?
You're not dead.
Help me. Would you help me? For God's sake?
Suppose I do. What will you do for me?
Anything. God is my witness.
If I cut you down, will you do what I tell you to?
Hell yes, I will. Swear to God.
Swear to it?
I swear.
Swear to that almighty God you've been talking about?
Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, and bringing in the sheaves, and do unto others. And if you cut me down from this goddamn tree, I'll do anything you tell me to. I swear on God's holy name.
People cite you in particular as a connector in Hollywood. People know you, you introduce people.
Really?
I've heard that from several people. Do you reach out to people, cold call or email people whose work you like?
I cold call. I tender other actors. I'm on Tinder. Oh my God, I just saw you in your movie and I'm within 3 miles of you.
Swipe right.
Guys, at a restaurant in Abbot-Kinney, with the following 10 actors. Let me know if they're within a 5-mile radius. You have an app? Great performances I love. And you also happen to be really cute.
I'm curious for others too. Do you reach out to people whose work you enjoy? And
I do. I remember in the old days, I had the privilege of having my first time nominated for a film, and I was just starting out, and I was so touched because other actors sent me telegrams.
Oh, telegrams.
I got a telegram saying congratulations. I saw the movie.
Awesome.
And it was such a lovely, beautiful thing. But don't you love
I will say
other
that
friends reach
Amy
out?
wrote me a letter 3 years ago after our Roundtable. She wrote a letter saying it was so lovely meeting you.
Now we have to write letters.
Jesus,
Amy, way to bring it down.
I mean, it was so refreshing and such a lovely surprise.
I think that was the last letter I ever sent. It's like,
But
I
it's
always
just,
have these
it
moments.
was so lovely. It really was touching, and it's just, I think us women, we really need to support each other, and to get that was just, I was really pleasantly surprised, and not that you were not lovely in person, and I
Well, I'm
pleasantly
actually
surprised
very
just
shy,
thinking.
so I actually would rather write or sit and have coffee. Because when I get in large groups, I get like weird. But Reese has sent me something before.
Yes.
Reese sent me a letter.
I've always admired your work, and I just thought you were amazing last year in American Hustle.
Thank you.
And
Thank
so
you.
brave
You're
and
very
bare
sweet.
and just fearless, you know?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And you looked like hot.
So gorgeous.
It's amazing what a spray tan and a good diet will do, right? I'm like, who knew I was like meant to be tan?
I love seeing that side of you, though.
Thank
you know,
you.
I just thought it was great.
Thank
It
you.
was-
Well, I
it was great.
appreciated that very much.
how has fame impacted your personal lives?
I got this award called the Trailblazer Award, Legacy Awards at the Outfest, for my work in Boys Don't Cry, which has been 15 years now. The presenter got up and said, when I was 19 years old and I was questioning my sexual identity, I was looking for things that helped me connect to myself, and Boys Don't Cry was a pivotal moment, and it changed my life. And in fact, in a lot of ways, it was my lifesaver. And to hear people say that, and to hear how a movie like that can impact people, I never became an actor for that, but that became this side effect of it, and it is so touching.
My sister's transgender, and when I saw that movie, because as a sister, a sibling of a transgender person, it's really scary when you're growing up, especially in the world of the early 80s, was like, you're gonna get killed. People are gonna beat you up. How do I protect you, you know, from these people in the world? So to see, and also, will you be accepted? Will you find someone who loves you, who accepts you as you are? So when I saw that movie, it just was so important to me as a sibling to see that movie.
Thank you.
Really beautiful work. And,
Thank you.
And so grateful for that movie.
I am too, for all of the reasons that you're talking about and other people point out. It was an honor to be a part of telling that story. I'm glad I didn't know at the time the social impact of it. I just saw it as a love story. To me, it transcended gender and became a love story, which is everyone relates to. But had I known, I don't know if I would have been able to withstand that responsibility somehow at that young age, you know? But thanks.
Isn't that why it's going to the cinema is like what everyone's grown up and love doing? And it's when you get to see people being vulnerable, and you get moved by something, and you're like, oh, thank God, it's, you know, it's okay to be fallible, and that like those kind of films. And I was thinking Michelle Williams in Blue Valentine, and seeing that, and it's seeing that, like, that vulnerability, and you get that feeling of I guess it's cathartic in some way, isn't it?
On the fame question, just to follow up, what do you guys think when you see something like the photo hack that happened earlier this year? Who's responsible when something like that happens to someone like Jennifer Lawrence?
I think there's something different between being an actress and being famous. And I'm not saying like, I'm not trying to, you know, draw any line here. I'm just saying like, I think that everybody here, the world was so different when we all made our choices to come into the industry. So what's happening now with the proliferation of the internet and blogs and all of this is something that, you know, is completely new to everybody. So I think everyone's just sort of learning what the boundaries are now.
I feel really, really strongly that there's nothing deviant about two lovers sharing sexual intimacy. That is normal. It's been happening since the beginning of time. That is not deviant. What is deviant is when a community decides that they can break into your sexuality, steal that from you, insert themselves. What really disturbed me, because I ended up in a lot of Twitter battles with people about it, is I feel like we're teaching our children also social values at this time. And I had a lot of women write back, they were stupid to take those pictures to begin with. That society thinks it's okay and it's their fault, that's deviant. That's the problem, and that we're teaching our kids, somebody messes up or does what they want in their private life, they're stupid, and you can basically communally molest them.
Well said.
Yeah. And also, you know, it takes this conversation to sometimes set one standard for themselves. It's by the privilege of having a community of friends who do deal with the internet, celebrity, and their intimacy being exposed or invaded that help me define everything from this muddied, oh my God, I just came out of the mall and they're like taking pictures of my kids. Is that right? Should they be able to take pictures of my kids? That I can call you guys and go, what do we do about this? And should we be doing something? And how do we protect our children? Like, I don't know by myself. So the gorgeous opportunity of being part of a round table is that I can ask your guidance on how I'm entitled to be protected or protect myself. It's the privilege of getting to do press with Reese while being incredibly maternal toward her and a girlfriend, because I can witness moments where I think an unfair question has been presented, and it's not to me, so I can be all like, yo, hold on, you don't ask my Reese that question.
I just feel like there is a moment, like you see what's going on, especially with the whole, with Renee Zellweger, the attention that she got recently. I feel like the scrutiny on people has just gone through the roof.
It's horrible and disrespectful, and I could go on and on and on.
Please do.
It bothers me immensely. I just think the
What's the
speculation
solution?
is disgusting, and it's no, you know.
I think not to let it inhibit who you are or your behaviour. I think that's the thing, is that people, you know, continue to share who you are and be personal. That's what's sad, is when people start to self-censor and start not doing certain things because they're worried that what X or Y is going to think about it. That's a terrible situation.
Why do they have to tear people? I know this is so Pollyanna of me, but why? And it's particularly women. Why do they have to tear women down? And why do we have to tear other women down to build another woman up?
Yeah.
You know, it drives me crazy. Like, this one looks great without her makeup, but that one doesn't look good without her makeup. And it's all just a judgment and an assault that look, men are privy to it as well. I just don't think it's with the same sort of ferocity. And
But I think you have to fight it economically. You know, I remember when with the proliferation of all the celebrity magazines and stuff, that suddenly when I was growing up, if you were in a supermarket and there was a magazine like that, you know, my mother told me, nice people don't read those magazines. That's just garbage. And then suddenly there's this transition where there are all these magazines, and you go onto a plane and people had stacks of them, and they were reading them like it was okay. And I'm like, that's not okay. So I think the only way you can deal with it is by not involving yourself in it, by not purchasing them, by not, you know, by banning them from your, I mean, it sounds really silly, but like, they just shouldn't be around.
Unfortunately, all of that stuff makes a lot of money for people, and you know, printing pictures of our children makes a lot of money, so they're not going to not do it, even though it's clearly wrong to follow my child around and take pictures at a playground. That's clearly weird and creepy.
I had a big fight with one.
Pardon?
A physical fight?
Well, he was following us.
Oh, yeah,
And I
I
said,
wish
that
I had
man's
been there to have your
following
back.
me.
I'd have been-
I know. I was like, that guy's following us. I was like, leave us alone. He kept following us. And I said, okay. Leave us the fuck alone. And he goes, nice, Mom. Good job. I said, this is a teachable moment. I'm teaching my daughter. If a man is following you and you tell him to go away and he doesn't, you turn around and say, fuck you, as loud as you can.
Yeah.
Because there's no difference. I don't care if he has a camera. If I show up at red carpet, if I show up at a charity event, if I'm promoting a movie, take pictures. I'm there for you to take pictures. You're doing your job. I'm doing my job. I get it. If I'm in my real life and you're following me, I don't care if you have a camera, fuck you. That's how I feel.
I wanted to talk a little bit about politics because, George Clooney and to a slightly different extent, Angelina Jolie have used their celebrity to further political causes. And some of you have dabbled in that, but I'm curious the extent to which you feel like it's okay to put yourself out there and sometimes might you not do as much as you think you should.
I consider myself an equal voice to any other voice, and I will use it however I can when there's injustice or inequality, and I'm sure we all feel that way. And whether you have the opportunity, because you're a celebrity, to have it be heard on a different level, and that benefits the cause, awesome.
Well said.
Do you think that activism might help or hurt your career?
Who cares?
Probably both.
It's like you have to be yourself, and you
Yeah.
can't. I mean, hopefully, and I really believe from the beautiful work everyone at this table has done, that they're not calculated enough to even think.
I'm talking about more of the negative side.
Being
the impact
who you
of that.
are has to be your priority, and you must have a sense of that to do beautiful raw work, to do work that's so deeply in touch. So. Who cares? People will always judge you. And yeah, it's nice if you can open people's minds. I do a lot of work in Haiti on sanitation. Nobody wants to talk about sanitation. I mean, my God. But I was like, that's kind of the most punk rock thing I could do. Okay, I'll talk about that. But yes, your name can sometimes really get people to listen to you and sit for half an hour and talk about pathogen death rates. But to also feel the responsibility that you're supposed to do that, that's not right either. And I know there's been some celebrities who said, oh, to expand my brand, I'm supposed to do some charity thing. That's weird.
Have any of the roles that you've played impacted your activism?
I mean, I don't know any apathetic actors. I just don't know. We're curious, passionate people. That's why we do what we do. We love people. So everything's so many. I have a hard time sometimes because there's so many things that I'm interested in advocating for. But yeah, I mean, I've played roles where I worked, domestic violence issues. So that became a big thing for me, just domestic violence all around the world, And also the reach that we have is global. It's extraordinary that you go places, and sometimes it's like you can't believe that people show up at these events, that you're there, but it's an opportunity to put good into the world in so many ways.
I think whatever it takes to bring attention to something is, you can be think it's cheesy or think that it's about self-gain, but if it raises awareness, then it's not a bad thing, is it?
Is there a contemporary woman that you would each like to play?
I feel like characters don't exist without a narrative.
Right.
That idea of there's this character. Well, that's great. So you have the character, but that you don't go anywhere with just an interesting personality. You need a story. You need, beginning, a middle, and an end. The narrative matters, the point of view, all of that. Beyonce.
I kind of like to be
okay.
Beyonce.
You'd like to be I just want to be her.
We should do that Bob Dylan movie, but with Beyonce.
Where we all get to play Beyonce.
We all get to great idea. I don't have a narrative.
Producer.
But we'll come after that.
Why did you say yes to Sarah Palin?
It was a great story. It was a great story, and I think it. You were amazing. That was awesome. She was charismatic, very interesting, kind of new political figure that we didn't know much about. And Jay Roach, who Laura and I have both worked with, and Danny Strong, kind of, they managed to create, well, it was a true story, but they managed to kind of encapsulate this narrative and tell the story of her rise and fall in the Republican Party, or actually not fall, she exited. It's really what she did, But so it was kind of amazing, and I said yes before I even thought about it, and then hung up the phone and went like, what am I gonna do? Oh man, that was bad though. That was bad, just because everyone knew her voice, everyone knew her mannerisms, everyone knew, and she wouldn't go away. She was very, very present.
She would, yeah. But you've done so many brave things. I have a question for you. Like, can you even do movies where you're like, I just imagine every part you've ever played. Like, think of Boogie Nights. I think so many roles. I'd be so scared to do the things that you've done on film. And like the day before, do you not panic?
I panic more. I panic more on stage. I have a hard time on stage. I really have a lot of stage fright. I mean, I really get really shaky, and it's not fun for me. And but in movies, I don't. You don't panic. I had a therapist say to me once, a feeling can't kill you. And it can't, it's just a feeling, and we're just pretending, and I really like it. What I'm really afraid of is skiing and going fast, and people knocking me down accidentally, and maybe breaking my teeth, and those are the things that frighten me. They really, really frighten me. But being on a movie set with a lot of really terrific actors and having some great language and a director, and
God, I got a rub on you, because every time I walk on, I'm like, oh, can I do this? I don't want to mess it up and let everybody down.
that even if you do fail, what's
cut it out.
happen?
Cut around it.
That's right.
Why you should be afraid of theater.
Theater, yes.
There's so much love and passion and commitment, and as we know, with the small movies that we make, you're pushing this boulder up a mountain, and then all of a sudden you're a big stinker in it, and you're like, oh, sorry everybody, I know you worked your asses off. But anyway,
I
worry all the time.
When I was doing
about
The End of the Affair with Neil Jordan, we had shot the entire movie, and it was the part in the middle of the movie where the big explosion happens, and we think that Ray Fiennes is dead. And I'm supposed to run down the steps in my little tiny slip, and throw myself on his body and burst into tears. And I run down the stairs, and I was like, no, I'm sorry, I did it again. No, I didn't get it. One more time. And the third time I just stopped, and Neil went, I think you'd be crying here. And I was like, I know, but I can't cry. And he said, well, you've done the whole movie. We know the whole story. So, don't get hung up on this thing. And then finally I was able to do it. And I still think I could have been better, but it didn't, I got through it. It felt really bad. It felt terrible, but then I was like, it didn't kill me.
That's what was so amazing about Sarah Palin, and terrifying, I think, to play someone, not only a real person, but SNL fodder.
Well, you played Catherine Harris.
Yeah, and it was the same thing with the same people, same writer and director, where people had done them on Mad TV and SNL, and they were in Letterman's, list of jokes every night. And so to try to kind of consider.
So you're not making an impression.
That's right.
How you get their essence, but you're not imitating them.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a real
Reese did
subtlety
that
there.
beautifully in Walk the Line.
Beautiful.
And there was a scene, my favorite scene is when you're sitting in that diner and you're talking to him and your voice is so rough. It was just so great because she sounded so tired and her voice sounded exhausted. She sounded exhausted from singing and from touring and from, and it was beautiful because how do you capture the essence of someone when you don't look like them? None of us look like each other. We kind of pretend, and we can put makeup on and wigs and clothes and stuff, but you do it, hopefully from the inside out, and that's what she did as June Carter Cash, and it was just like that weariness of tone, and that's the kind of stuff you notice in performances, and you're like, ooh, that's good.
If you could go back and give your 20-year-old self advice on acting and Hollywood and your career, what advice would you give yourself?
Well, I was just going to say that crying thing. I spent my life growing up, trying to make myself cry, because I thought that's what an actress had to do. Like pinching yourself, punching yourself in the face, everything. And then realizing at that moment that you, just because it says cry in the script doesn't mean you have to do it.
That's
and
right.
If it doesn't come, it's okay.
I really have to say, I was thinking of that when you were talking about that, but then I heard you saying what your director was saying, actually, we need it to be like this. But I find that if it's written a certain way, and I don't, of course, I try everything to get there.
Yeah.
But if it's not coming, I think, there's other ways to mourn.
Yes, right. That's
You know,
right.
there's
exactly.
that shock and that moment of nothing comes out, and maybe a week later you have that cathartic
Exactly.
release. So there are different creative ways. But yes, if Mike Nichols says, no, I think you should, then I get it. That's why I didn't say anything. I was like, okay, I can't fight with him.
Any advice that you would offer?
Oh God, let it go, Amy. Just,
Always.
in the words of Elsa, which is, just let it go.
Yeah. I heard that song. I'm like, I know.
I know, that's right. That's why it was such a big deal to all those little girls.
Yeah.
It's true, all of us. We're all like, that's right.
Let it go.
That's so great.
It's just,
I've said before, but it is so true for me, the best advice my third grade teacher, Mrs. White, gave me, which is keep your eyes on your own paper.
That's true. Yeah.
On that note, I think we'll wrap up. I wanted to thank everyone for participating today in the Hollywood Reporter Roundtables, the actresses. We have Hilary Swank, Amy Adams, Julianne Moore, Reese Witherspoon, Felicity Jones, Patricia Arquette, and Laura Dern. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.